What I'm about to share is a true story that happened to me when I was about 17 years old. I'm now 48 and have only told this to a few close friends. At that time as a teenager, I was just being introduced to things like spirituality and meditation. I didn't even realize these things existed outside of Christianity, in which I was forced to partake in as a kid, having to go to Sunday school. Anyway, I started going to the local bookstore to purchase books on meditation and general spirituality. There was one book I purchased called something like Order of the Flame or Order of something. I still can't seem to recall. I don't recall what was in the book, but the one part that stuck out to me was some type of initiation. What they explained is a group of people would lead an initiate blindfolded deep into the woods. Once they got to a particular spot, they would take the blindfold off and be left there alone overnight. The strange part of it is they would have to summon something by saying these words: "Nature, give me a sign that you will teach me." Some initiates would see disturbing things after that, faces in the dark, etc. That's all I can recall about it at this point. Fast forward a month or so. I was up late one night about 2 a.m. It was a beautiful, warm, peaceful night. I decided I was going to go for a walk down a side road not far from my place, which was in a rural area. This side road led into an empty field with small forested areas on either side. For some reason at that moment, I remembered that part in the book about the initiation. I decided I was going to try it and just sit in the forest and see what happened. So I made my way not too far from the road to the forested area and sat beside a large fenced field. For a few minutes, I just enjoyed the silence of being out this late sitting beside some trees. Then in my head, I said, "Nature, give me a sign that you will teach me." I kind of smiled to myself thinking this was silly. Then, right along the opposite side of the field, I heard the distinct sound of a barbed wire fence being stretched. Suddenly, something in the air changed, almost like it became more silent than silent. My mind started to race with the thought of a bear, or even worse, another human, or who knows. Out of nowhere, I heard a pack of wolves howling in the mountains, fairly far away. It was so bizarre. Now my mind was really racing and starting to panic. I suddenly felt in a primal way that I was in immediate danger, and the howls of the wolves were almost telling me to run now. Without hesitation, I ran through the wooded area, back down the road and back to my house. At that time when I got home, I really didn't think about any correlation between what I said from the book and what just happened. I found it really weird that I regularly spent time outside and never heard wolves until that exact moment. The second event happened about a year later. I was in a small town visiting one of my friends late at night, likely playing video games. As it got later, it was time for me to head back to the other side of town, to another friend's house where I was staying for a few days. Rather than walking on one of the streets, I decided to take a much better shortcut through a wooded area down a trail just past a school field. It was about the same time, around 2 a.m. It didn't really feel that dark as the moon was super bright out, which was part of the reason I took the trail. As I walked down the trail and almost to the end of the wooded area, I stopped and turned around to admire the moon. I'm not sure why exactly, but I decided to say the same thing while looking at the moon. I said in my head, "Nature, give me a sign that you will teach me." Nothing happened, so I turned around and walked off to the end of the trail. I took about 6 steps, and all of a sudden, to the right of me, in the pitch-black wooded area, there was a huge commotion of very large branches being snapped as if something very large was running through the woods towards me. I instantly bolted toward the end of the trail and toward the light of the town. I jumped over a giant cement barrier and fell and continued to run for my life as fast as I could. My immediate thought was I had stumbled upon a large black bear or grizzly and startled it. I ran without stopping for about 2 blocks and started to slow down. I looked behind me to see that nothing was chasing me. Then I heard it again. In the mountains above town, I heard wolves howling in the distance. But this time it was strange, as the howl sounds were almost morphing into the sound of a woman screaming or crying out. I was so confused and freaked out, standing there trying to catch my breath. After that last event, I was convinced something paranormal had just happened to me. What are the odds of 2 strange events, both happening when I spoke those words, both at night and both in the forest? Not to mention I'd walked down that trail at night a few times before and never had anything like that happen. I never went into the forest again at night. I am 48 now, and I still think back to these events and wonder if it was just a wild coincidence or if something else really transpired. I often think back and chuckle to myself. I guess in the end I really did get my answer. Maybe nature did give me a sign that it would teach me. Perhaps it was a lesson I may not have wanted.